from Kunggandji Kamoi people walk from here across to Yarrabah. Along this side, all the way from Kamoi all the way up to the Malbay River was occupied by Kunggandji camps. Double Island was fighting ground, so the Jabberganji came there to do ceremonies, fighting duel contests for who would be the best warrior.
As far as when I was brought up, that's all I knew. My grandma used to talk Kunggandji, my grandfather talked Kunggandji. That's all we knew. Who lived over Yarrabah, who's over here. Kunggandji, Lord Kunggandji. Right, we used to go up to the beach, up to Palm Cove.
We know, that's why Granddad George Christian.
Yeah.
We know for a fact that rebel baptised him in the Trinity Inlet. And when he baptised him, George, he baptised him the landowner of Cairns.
He was born here, and then they'd send him back to Yarrabah, but he was here. The tradition that the council reckoned today, the Pie Man, whatever his name is,
Bob Manning.
Bob Manning, saying and other people recognise that these singletons or whatever their name is, as tradition and foremost as traditional. That's rubbish. They're not traditional.
Like Jabbergai talk about freshwater Gurrabuna. Well, we're saying, well, freshwater Gurrabuna is actually saltwater Gurrabuna, because for them to become Gurrabuna, they would have to have come from a Kunggandji Gurrabuna woman.
Yeah, and let the truth be told. Be fair, you know.
Yeah.
We don't want to fight people. We're not going to cause conflict. We want to be recognised as the traditional owners of this land.
Anthropologists or solicitors or lawyers, nobody has spoken to the Kunggandji people of Cairns. Nobody. And we know that, we haven't heard of, I have never heard of singletons or 4 miles or any of them that were in from this Cairns area. But like I say, nobody has spoken to us. And yet, if they wanted to know that information, they could ask somebody, who were the local people here first. But nobody has come and ever asked us that.
And we're saying to the federal courts that we want genealogy to come in now, Your Honour, because we want people to be accountable for their identity now, especially the bloodline to the land. So we know from our tribal law, we had a traditional tribal marriage structure that we practice to keep inheritance of our land. So Mirrawongal and Cairns Harbour here, see this here, this used to be one. This used to be one. So from that Dumri and Goyala story, you got Goyala there, and you got Dumri over here. Remember when the two brothers fought?
So all that changed because of dredging. The dredging came in before, it was just a little trickle. It was all man-made stuff. And that's why I'm saying Cairns wasn't no inlet. Cairns, there was nothing. Just because Cairns, boats couldn't come into Cairns because Cairns was just a little river. And that's how come our people used to come by canoe or walk, because Grandad Kiro was from there, False Cape. And he walked around. And that's how my granny came back to country in Cairns, because Grandad Kiro was living between False Cape and we call it Alligator Creek.
And we used to stay there underneath the manga tamarind tree. That's where the Alligator Creek is. My mother, father, granny also, my aunties and uncles used to spear fish and all that along the tide. Used to come right up to the house, right up to the top of the house, just about with the ladder. We had a big tamarind tree there.
Me and Anna Rennie went out. She took me out muscling one day. She reckoned, no, follow me. I fell in her. Next one, she showed me how to get the mussel. Next one, I said, Rennie, the tide's coming in. She reckoned, don't be frightened. I said, no, I want to go home. She was crying because the tide was coming in.
Yeah.
She reckoned, don't worry, we won't get bogged in here.
And Dad built his own place where there was a big swamp. He built his house there, and then we all used to play there at bungalow in the big tall grass and all that, playing cubby house, my cousin playing doctor, green. We all used to have good times there, And they used to chase horses and chasing pigs and all that, wild pig was there. And Granny used to take us for mussels, and she used to cook it all up for us, pennywinkles and all that. You get them off the tree, remember? That's like a mangrove, yeah.
And there was one point in Smith Creek we used to fishing off it. Fishing off and with Smith Creek there, he had one big point. You can stand up at it and chuck your line. And not only that, we used to leave that, it used to be half a wharf. You had to go the other wharf, you had to walk round it to the other side. When you do, you come to the main wharf where the luggers used to come in. Every time the luggers used to come, we used to dive off the wharf, especially the luggers, tortoise shell luggers. We used to dive up and meet them, and they used to pull us up and bring us back to the wharf again.
Yeah, well, Dad used to work on the luggers, and Granddad Tom De Silva, he used to work for a fella, doctor in Cairns years ago. At that time, Dr. Bruce Clark, like a tour guide for him, because he used to take people from south. They used to come up, and he used to take them out on the boat. And Granddad used to always skipper the boat, and they used to go out to Green Island for the day.
And what about Nana? She was in part of it too?
And Grandma, Ida De Silva, she worked for the first sergeant of Cairns as a domestic.
If you met the old lady, I'll tell you, she was beautiful. I was close to her because I knew her pretty well, Granny, and she passed away when I was away. But when I came back, I went straight to the cemetery, and I felt sad that I wasn't here when she did pass away.
So your granny was George Christian's, and he was the first person who was baptised when Gribble came.
That's it. He was there before the church ever came there.
With Granddad George Christian, got his connectionist report, and that we need to endorse that today because that needs to go to the federal court next month. But we still got to come back and do tribal business in regards to the tribal organisation, the recognised native title body that's going to be recognised in the Kunggandji Kamoi, because this claim here for Cairns is going to be a Gurrabuna moiety claim only. Now, in Yarrabah, we are native title holders under Yarrabah. So we need to, we're native title holders already in Yarrabah.
We are traditional. We've got deed and trust. I didn't bring it today. We've got deed and trust on the IFRED. We'll call it straight. We got our land back, but I don't own it. Get you what I'm trying to say? They gave us this paper when we did the ignition, the finalising of the paperwork, we got our land back. We all got deeds and trust, but no, we got no land. So that was one of the concern, and the people that was running the place over there, they weren't, like you said, the protocol, keeping to what it's supposed to be. And when they have festivities over there, we don't get invited. And there's over 20-something elders sit here in Cairns.
So when we come over to the Cairns claim, now Yarrabah is done and dusted. So Gurrabuna and Gurrabuna got a determination there. Yarrabah was the family band because their mob was, forget about this Dumry here. They forgot to put our stories in it even says in the Rigsby report, they failed to discuss it with the Kunggandji Cairns people. No one went to that meeting to have input about the stories and all that. So when they did the 2011 determination, that's when we noticed, we said, hey, how come Cairns was missed out? Because Dumry lay at Redledge. One day, Goyala lost patience with Dumry, and they got into a fight, and Goyala threw his brother Dumry to the west, and he hit his head on a rock, and he peed blood. That blood is the story for Barron River. Our tribal language name, Bana Bidagara. Bana meaning water, Bidagara meaning sand dunes. This was already documented in the Rigsby report as a Kunggandji language name and place. So that was his final resting place. And as soon as Goyala and his brother had fought, Goyala and the crocodile fought, because the Conjurer, which is Kunggandji for crocodile, and is a totem of the Kunggandji Gurrabuna Kamoi people, the crocodile fought with Goyala, and the fight was so fierce that that's where their final resting place is. The Conjurer snout, the crocodile snout, is where Gingara, and Goyala, you go over his side and then over his belly and then down the other side to Yarrabah. But in the Dreamtime, that was all flat country. Cairns and Yarrabah was one land, one people.
Just here where that traffic light is there, That's where Alligator Creek was, and my grandparents used to live all along there up into here, where the civic centre is.
Cairns district, city, and Alligator Creek, where not much people know about, where my mum was born on the land, and her brothers and sisters. And mum was born 1925, 26, sorry. And but the Alligator Creek is all gone. The council covered over years ago. And he used to prove that my mum lived in Alligator Creek. That's Alligator Creek there. To run down to where Maytown used to be. And this little shed house, the roof up here is where my mum used to live. That's why Kunggandji, they were the only ones smart enough to make dugout canoes. Because they go from the mouth of the Russell River all the way here in Yarrabah, Cairns Inlet, all the way up.
We used to go forward creek, all our area fishing. Even with the sugar terminal, they were good fishing along there until they built a terminal. And then they had the whole World War II refit. And used to come into the Alligator Creek. And there's a big wooden bridge. And there are all oil tanks behind. Into Bunner Street. And my granny and granddad Tommy used to live in this ice at Fibergo. Just pull a stick. Because Uncle William used to throw the line and Uncle Vicky used to fish, get their breakfast.
Uncle Tom used to take me down to a place called Rifle Range Creek. That's behind a loon on the east-western side. And he used to throw the net, and I used to pick up all the prawns, put them in a bag or a little basket he made with wire. Then we go from there up to Chinaman's Creek, and we go cast the net, and then we pull up and fish for a while. Sometimes we used to cook crabs on the open fire, eat them while we're there catching fish.
We moved from Alligator Creek, we moved here to Bungalow Reserve, and this is Bungalow Reserve where we're standing now. And there was all my family here, my grandmother and my grandfather, and this was just one right in here. It was all bush.
The health department made allegations that it was the outbreak of hookworms, and that was the big excuse to get us away from this land. And because we used to get these little tins, they drop them off. We had to do a feces test, little tin, and we kept on getting sick of it. And when they come, we run away. Oh, we said we don't want to go in that tin because we were sick of it. And every time we seen them, health mob. But that was made the big move. They made the allegations, made it look like we the instigators of hookworm, and that's their way of getting rid of it. So like some of us moved down there, they got their own place.
Like someone was saying, like that poo test, we all used to swear them black and blue and say get out. But the main actor that used to come up to do the poo test, give us injections and medication was Mr. Glasgow. And Mr. Glasgow used to work for Cairns City Council, and I don't know where the hell the Cairns City Council said Bungalow Reserve never exists. Well, please, Mr. Manning and whoever's sitting on the council, not only today but in the future, if you want to know where Bungalow Reserve is, please come to us, the De Silva family, and we will tell you where Bungalow Reserve is. And this is reserve.
Was only a little kid, he didn't know nothing.
This is the reserve here now, where we're standing. I used to run around and play here. This is my area, right up till I was 13 years.
Dad built another house. He had a house here and built out of mangrove. And he took us down, all us kids, 13 kids, we were living in the mangrove. He built it out of the mangrove. And we lived there for some time before we went to Till Street. But as for the mayor or any of these councillors, they are talking through their hat. They don't know nothing. There was to reserve, Bungalow Reserve and Line Street Reserve.
So see this area here, coming up with the blue, that's where our boundaries, that's the boundaries coming down. We're taking over East Trinity area to the border. You know, the Rigsby report, I can show you, got maps from Yalanji people, not Kunggandji people, not our people. So that's what we're saying to Judge Dowson. We're saying the west is Gurrabuna, because only Uncle Roy Banning family is going to be a 50-50 shared Kunggandji Jabugai claim for the freshwater red lynch area.
Red Lynch in those days it was called Sin City, and I'm sure the museum must have some record of that being Sin City, because that's where all the Chinese used to bring the gold down to the Baron.
She had to hold Granny Minnie's mouth from screaming. All of Granddad Uncle Roy Banning's family were shot. So they came through a walking track from Spearwa through Crystal Cascade into Red Lynch, and there was a rancher by the name of Banning there. And they took his last name, and he was the one that gave them land, but we were the ones that culturally adopted them because...
Okay, that was the past. That was the day that we were oppressed. But we're not oppressed today. But the thing is, in some areas, yes, but we are educated, and we got the young kids they got that. They can go and get out like me and they get academic achievements and become role models to others.
We used to call everybody auntie and uncle, cousin, brother or tita, that means brother and sister. But as soon as that land, native title stuff come in, that's when we didn't recognize each other as brother and tita anymore. We were enemies, which was very sad. So I think Johnny Howard brought this thing in, and I think that's why he brought it in, so tribes can fight amongst themselves. And this is where it all broke down and the culture broke down, because there's no more respect anymore. Like these kids are going around breaking into people's houses. They're not being taught anything. You know, they're not being taught like we did and how I taught my children. They are, they just think now the community owes them because this is how it was. Everybody just take nowadays. Instead of sharing. When I grew up, we was sharing. Whatever little you got, you share.
I'd never go in your place unless you asked me. I'd never sit on your table unless you asked me. I would never just go in and say, I want a piece, this and a piece of that piece. That'll never happen. Not with me or most of my family anyway. We would never do that.
When old Kunggandji went for the determination for Yarrabah, we were all sad because we said, hey, they're not mentioning Cairns. How come they're not mentioning Cairns? And we said, no, we got another fight now because the following year, the Kunggandji and the Wallumbari Dinji people thought they could put a claim on our land. Well, they got a fright when they seen the Kunggandji, Gurrabuna, Kamoi people stand up and say, well, no, Wallumbari Dinji, Jabugai, Kunggandji, or any other Aboriginal person who want to try and take authority over our land, for Kamoi, Cairns, to be your language, name and place, that's not true. We were here before anybody. We Alligator Creek Kunggandjis. We got connection to Cairns and we want recognition.